feel a little strange. Couldn't get you out of my head again last night. Now I have to work my shifts, but my mind's starting to sift.
Okay, the first thing to do is you have to set up a page. Select your tool. I usually use a Cowboy pen, and I set it at about 7, something like that for the size. I choose a blue color, and I start drawing my rough underdrawing here. So just draw really loose, keep your lines really loose and fluid. That's the main thing, I guess. You don't have to worry about anything being too perfect right now. This is just to give you an idea where you're going to put your drawing. So you're basically just sort of drawing guidelines. Once we get this down, we'll be putting another layer on to do the actual line drawing of this. Just about done here. Okay, so I select the black, and I create a new layer. Bring it up a bit so I can see what I'm doing, and start drawing my good lines over top. This is great. This is, you know, if you don't have this program, it's easy to do this on paper as well. You just take you know, a sheet of bond paper or something, draw your rough on that, and then what's great is animation paper or something to that effect that you can see through and draw your good line on that over top. You don't even need a light box most of the time. You can see right through and see your lines. But the great thing about these programs is that you can just do all that with all in one thing. It's very fast. Don't have to worry about getting covered in ink anymore. You just select what you want out of the toolbox. There's pretty much any tool you would possibly need in this. So, you know, if you draw whatever you're normally comfortable with. Like I said, I like the Cowboy pen, works best for me. But just whatever you're comfortable with. And if you get a line like this that you don't like, you just it's so easy, no erasing. You just kind of hit the undo and redraw it again. Fast. Hold down your spacer key on your keyboard, and the hand comes up automatically. It changes from your tool to that hand, so it's easy to move your drawing around. I guess I should mention that this is Corel Painter 12 that I'm doing this in. There's already newer versions of this program, but the basics are in all of these programs. There's just usually just added effects or features, but it's not going to change how you draw. The basic features are in these programs. That's the first thing they put in. So if you're an old style where you just draw everything, and then you don't need a real complex program, really. As you can see, the lines that I have underneath are just a rough guide. If you get that down, you can see where your lines are wrong when you go to draw it over top. It's easy to put your line in the right place. Again, that first underdrawing is just a guide. It's so nice to have that guide and then draw your good stuff over top, Because I'm going to do this in color, I don't do a lot of texture with the black line. I'm just leaving it all open so that I can put all that texture with the color and get the depth with the color. Once you get drawing in these programs, you start to wonder how you did without them in the past. They're so convenient. Okay, so what I'm going to do here now is I'm going to create a layer in between those two layers. Now the reason for that is that it separates the rough drawing from your line drawing. And I can just select that whole middle layer now and grab a white and just dump it in, and I get rid of it covers up that rough drawing. You could dump that white in the rough drawing later, but it's nice to keep it just in case you want to use it for something else or refer back to it for some reason or other. Depending on how complex your drawings get, we're just doing a head here just to keep it simple, to show you a technique, or my technique of doing it anyway. There's many ways of doing any of this kind of stuff, but this works as good as most, I guess. So I have gone back to the line drawing layer, and I fill in the color on that layer. And if there's a spot that isn't connected, then I just reconnect it so I can fill that color in. Use the eyedropper tool. Quick way to get the color that you've been using. So I like to dump a solid color in first on that layer that I did the black line on. You can do it many ways. If you want to keep the black line separate, you can just duplicate that layer and then shut one of them off, and so you've got a black line and a color, but just about got the solid stuff in here. When you're doing any of this kind of line drawing stuff, I also, when I'm using the magic wand, I make sure that the anti-aliasing or anti-aliasing, whichever way you pronounce it, is shut off, so the color goes right to the edge. So I select, I like to use an airbrush to do the color, to do the texture, just because it's, nice and smooth. I set it a little wider stroke here so that I get a smoother blend. You don't have to labor over where you place the color. As long as you're getting it roughly where you want your shading, it'll all work out in the end. You don't have to be really, really precise, because you can always bring down the opacity, which is how I do everything anyway. Just get the color on in the basic areas that I need it, and bring things up a little closer here so I can get into certain parts. Again, I don't labor over whether the color is getting a little bit onto something that you don't want, because you can just control it with the opacity and bring it down. It'll blend it really nice, as you'll see. So I've taken that down, and now I leave that selection and I create a new layer, and I grab, I'm going for a little bit of a brownish tone here just to darken it up. I went with sort of a more fleshy red there, just to make things pop a little bit. And now I take a bit of a brown and darken it up a bit more where I want it. Your style will dictate that. You'll have a way of doing things, whichever way you've worked in the past with paint or markers or whatever you've used in the past. Your style remains the same when you do this stuff, pretty much. The only nicer part about this is you can be a little bit looser. You don't have to be so precise, because you have so much control. You can just blend those colors in. If anything sticks out a bit too much, just take the opacity down and rework another layer and get it a little bit more the way you want it. And so what I always do here, I created another layer, and I'm taking white now. I like to use just straight white to bring out the parts of in this case the face, where the parts of the face that are coming forward a little bit, your nose and tip of your chin and so forth. So I'm bringing that out in the foreground. So I get it on, and doesn't matter whether it looks pretty thick at this point. We grab the opacity again, just watch, and I take it down here, and I'll take it a little bit more there, get a fairly nice blend. You can just kind of monkey with that until you get it where you want. So now I go back to the our line layer again, where all the flat color is, and I select the hat area that I want to put shading on, and create another layer, and grab my airbrush tool, set the size of the spray, and just do some strokes with it and get it shaded in, and gives me the kind of look that I'm after. That's looking pretty good. So again, go over to your opacity on that, take it down. And the great thing about this is you can take a look at it after you're done, and you can tweak those levels of that opacity on every layer that you've worked on. As long as you've saved all your layers, it's always good to keep a file with all your layers on it, and you can go back and rework it any way you want. Sometimes after you've looked at it for a little while, you go, gee, that's a little bit too much or not enough, and you can just monkey with it until you get it right. But usually the first time around, you usually get it pretty close. So, okay, there, I'm taking that opacity down. There. And I get rid of my selection. And continue on with that until I get the whole thing done. I reselect the parts of the hat, and I do a little bit more around the eyes there. And we're done.
Sun coming up over the hill. No one to help me but my pony will. I'm bringing in the cattle on a warm summer's morning. Up in the hills, doing fine, eating grass and paying no mind to all the crazy things this old world's been doing. Yeah, it's a short ride to paradise. Ah, nothing in this world could ever seem as good to me. Yeah, it's a